dare we say Hendrick needed a win? I mean, they run so well that, it sounds crazy to think they need to win. But I actually think this is a big kind of a springboard for the whole organization. Now, if they could have picked, they probably would have picked Bowman. No offense to Byron. I think they would rather get their fourth car in the playoffs. But I do think Byron closing a race out with the win. And I think you saw that with Rudy Fugle, see the double fist pump from pit road. And Rudy, right? Like, he's not an emotional guy. Like, the guy's pretty quiet. And I think that emotion was real. It's hard to run bad, but that sometimes can be a more emotionally draining when you run good and don't win. And I think that's kind of what we had out of the 24. And then here today, I don't think they were the best car. I think Brad was the best car, but I think it didn't matter because the 24 had the best strategy, which was pit well before you could ever think you could make it on fuel and then get enough yellows to make it.
Yeah, well, obviously here on Inside the Race, we break down how the race was won, how the race was lost, and all things in between. But I'm going to bring in our friend over here, AA, Adam Alexander from Amazon.
You got him to work? Where you been, Adam?
As Turner. He just decided to let you take over, and he's just hanging out, chilling, enjoying his summer. Adam is one of the hardest working people, so I know that's not true. But Adam, his 15th career win for William Byron. His last win was obviously the Daytona 500. 21 starts in between. What have you been thinking about this 24 crew, and how'd you feel about their win today?
Well, you guys talked about the wins that got away, and I would just reference the rough summer. I mean, 27th or worse in 5 of the last 8 races, and it's starting to spiral a little bit. And I don't care how you get there, that's bound to ding your confidence. And so here they are in a position to not just go out and win, but at a great race car, and you lead close to 150 laps or whatever it ends up being. And then the other side of that, you mentioned the summer that was not good to them. And they had this sizable advantage in the regular season points lead, and that all went away. And they had lost that to Chase Elliott. And so not only are you not getting the finishes you want, you could lose those potential 15 playoff points that could be so valuable and help create a bye once you get to the opening round of the playoffs. They regained that today. And, coming into today's race, 20 points separated the top 4 with Chase Elliott, William Byron, Kyle Larson, and Denny Hamlin. And now, it's kind of a 2-man race again with 3 to go between Chase Elliott and William Byron, who's back on top. So I feel like they checked a lot of boxes today. And then when you look at the upcoming schedule, he's won at Watkins Glen, he's won at Daytona, he's won at Darlington. So that side of it is pretty good for them to continue this ride as well.
Be honest, Adam, you missed me. You're on here because you missed me, Adam. I know. You can tell everybody. It's a casual show, Adam. You can just tell everybody you just missed me. How was this Sunday afternoon not hanging out with me?
I was going to FaceTime you this morning about the time you were going to the track so you could criticize my bad driving, even though I was sitting at home on my couch, actually. I thought that would be a good way to go.
That would have been good.
Hey, there's no bad driving in rental cars. You can drive however
you never rode with Adam. No, you never rode with Adam.
I said that. The 318th career win for Hendrick Motorsports, which we are going to break down the rest of the teammates at HMS a little bit later on the show as well, because a box of all things for HMS today. We had a lot going on with Hendrick Motorsports, but Adam, we know how Steve gets in the booth when his crew chief hat comes on, and he starts sitting on his hands, and he stands up and sits down, and he talks a little bit faster, because when it comes time for him to be on top of the pit box, which I'm teeing this up, we're now going to have segments on Inside the Race, and this first one is going to be on the pit box. I don't know if you guys can figure out who wanted to do this one, but he's a little biased there as far as our crew chief. So let's break down everything that we saw from a crew chief perspective. And Steve, I want to start with you, obviously, on this one, because yellows in the final stage completely changed the strategy for the majority of teams, because the final stage was the stage that was never going to finish in Iowa. I thought we were going to be sitting here doing this show at midnight with folks. So what'd you see in the challenges of calling this race, given all those cautions?
So the challenge was, it's easy to say it was a fuel mileage race, but tire wear was a concern. I actually wasn't aware of that. Kim Kuhn gave me that report from pit road that some of the teams were concerned they couldn't run 110, 115 laps on the right front tire. It seemed to be wearing out. I think that's worth discussing, because when William Byron pitted right before the end of stage 2, he didn't expect 50 of the last 140 laps to run under caution. But sometimes sometimes you don't make a call knowing what the next call is going to be. You make a call saying, this gives me the most choices. And I think that's why the 24 came down pit road. I would love to show you some great restart or some magically move, but when he's the first car off pit road right here, this is what won the 24 car of the race. Now, he saved fuel, he managed fuel, and he stretched his fuel tank to get there. But that's really what Rudy Fugle was doing, was like, hey, what if I stop now, what other options does this have? This is like driving on a road trip somewhere, right? If you keep enough fuel in the car, then you can kind of open up your opportunities of where you're going to stop for dinner. And that's kind of what William Byron and his team did. And now you saw Keselowski and other guys. I thought they were a little late to jump on this strategy, but nobody, I feel awful for the 9 and the 21. They kind of mismanaged it the most. They were out there hoping for a long run that just never came.
And I think it was a big question mark, Adam, too, as far as this racetrack, because this is only the second time the Cup Series has seen Iowa. And I think we heard from Steve and Jeff Burton in the booth today about it was, confidence from the crew chiefs at first. And then it was a bunch of like, oh, I don't know. We're going to figure it out and see what we get. So what do you think the identity of this track is, and what will it be moving forward?
Yeah, I think the big question becomes, what do you do with the surface itself? Because we know how things changed last year when they repaved the bottom groove in the corner and, went up the racetrack with that repaving a little bit, how that repave had already gone through its weathering process from last year to this year, and how the dynamic had changed there, the bumps into turn 1 and what that created for these race cars. And then if you were to go in and repave the whole thing, which has been suggested by some in the industry that could happen, I have no insight on that. But if that were to happen, you would have just another layer of change when it comes to Iowa Speedway. And I think it's so funny. I was laughing at home watching Steve, because we had this conversation in the booth last week at Indianapolis and how wide open the pit strategy card is, just because of everything that can unfold at Indy, 2 tires, 4 tires, and when do you make your last pit stop and all of those things. And then here we are watching this race today, and it was exaggerated even more than what we saw last week at Indy, which we know is a strategy track. So I was compelled. It feels like such a very unique short track, and Steve can add more on the aero and some of those elements of it. But I was entertained, and I love the mix of good racing and strategy and the challenges that were created for these drivers.
I love the spot on the schedule.
Wait, that's all our reactions when we.
Did he just say he was laughing at me on air? Yeah, I won't take that personal.
We
Sounds
all
great.
have that reaction,
fine.
Double A. We all have it.
So the thing is, I love where the track is in the schedule. Like, I could almost see this thing being a great first round playoff track, just because it's kind of its own thing. That's what I get the same feeling out of St. Louis. That's why I think it has, Gateway has a good value in the playoffs, because it's just hard to predict. So some playoff races, I like the ability to handicap. You're like, well, this guy should be good here because it looks like this or feels like there's races like this. But I call them the anomaly. Nashville, kind of an anomaly. St. Louis is that way. This place is that way. It's like, what is it? It's a little bit of a Frankenstein, right? This is really, really fast short track, or really, really slow intermediate track, or somewhere in the middle. And to your point, Adam, the pavement and the tire combination and the aero package that NASCAR brings dictates that each and every week. But I will say, plug your ears if you don't like strategy. It's not going away. I mean, Richmond, maybe Darlington, some places where the surface dictate tires every time. Miami is probably another one, right, Adam, that we go to. It's tires every time. But this whole fuel conversation and fuel, just management, it's not going away. This is you can't put the genie back in the bottle. This is how the teams run it.
Steve, what did you make of hearing? Because I thought it was interesting with a lot of radio chatter that drivers were feeling inside of their race car. It was they couldn't quite get the grip inside of their race car, and they just felt on edge all day long. What was going on at Iowa with that? So to get a little nerdy, because that's what I'd like to do it sometimes, so Adam can laugh a little bit more. This combination, so NASCAR runs a bunch of aero packages, but basically they run one with a whole bunch of grip at the high-speed tracks, which allows some drafting and some other things, and then at the short tracks on the road courses, they take all the downforce away, and that's what we run here. So I just think it's a really fast track with a lot of bumps on corner entry without a lot of downforce. And what it basically equates to is drivers on the edge of control lap after lap after lap. We should really be shocked we went 170 with only 1 yellow. I mean, we're talking the best drivers in the world. Kyle Busch just wrecked by himself in practice. Denny Hamlin nearly wrecked 2 or 3 times. It was just continuing these guys being on the edge. Adam, when you watch a Saturday race, that's when it's the best, when the cars aren't locked down and their skill sets are on display. And that's really what we saw here. But I think that's what it is. I just think
it is an unknown. Like, what the heck am I going to do? What kind of track am I preparing for? I still don't think we know after 2 years.
Well, and I would say, think about the statement that was made today under these conditions by Brad Keselowski. You said it. I mean, the 6 had the best car, and Brad's had a lot going on this year. And you guys talked about it on the broadcast, and we talked about it on the air over the summer. Adding a third car with Ryan Preece creates an exponential amount of challenges for the entire organization. And Brad was the one that came out slower than anybody this year. What Preece has done has been remarkable. But I think now we're starting to see the total body of work of RFK. And I say all of that just to illustrate what both Preece and Keselowski were able to do today. You know, track conditions that are not easy, a place that's hard to get a hold of. And they went out and delivered not only behind the wheel, but the setup of the race car, but they also nailed the strategy to put themselves in position at the end to win the race. Is it bad that I'm cheering for the old guys?
No,
I'm not really
never.
cheering. I guess I'm not really cheering, but I think when you look at Brad, you know, look, there's more days behind than ahead. I mean, right? We all know that. I mean, he's not in the start of his career. So he went over and he took over this absolute challenge of being a driver owner. And it's, I don't know, it's a little bit of a throwback feel. It's a little bit that Ricky Rudd feel. And you know, I don't want to see him win at anyone else's expense, but I just want to see him do it. I want to see him stand there victorious, driving his own equipment. He's kind of driven and operated to kind of the beat of his own drum for his whole career. And why not do it as team owner? He's very proud of that K at the end of RFK, as he should be.
Yeah, he finished top 5 in consecutive races for the first time this season after finishing 5th last week. He finished 3rd here today at Iowa. Swept the stages, a lot of points. Obviously, he's in a must-win situation as far as the playoff push, but still a solid day that you can hang your hat on. We're going to touch on more of RFK a little bit later, but I want to turn over to
what'd you think of the race? Wait, you keep asking us. Did you like the race? You're not giving us anything. You're being all cordial host. Look, just because I'm wearing a tie, don't tighten up now because I got a tie on.
You can't overdress me because now I get uncomfortable because I'm not the best dressed person. No, I was a little worried during stage 1 because I think that I think the drivers were holding back. I didn't know what we were. I don't know if they were kind of dipping their toe into the water a little slowly to see what exactly they had at Iowa. Stage 2 and stage 3 picked up for me a lot. And I thought stage 3 was the final stage was a battle between teammates. You had battle between manufacturers. You had battles at the end. And then obviously with the fuel saving that just always blows my brain. And I don't know how you have 4% with like 9 laps to go and you still manage to win a race. Is just crazy to me. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked Iowa. They're kind. The people welcome us with open arms. It was a sellout crowd. It looked great on television. So I'm all here for Iowa.
I'm gonna give you some of that corn. I was a little jealous in Victory Lane, man. I'm starving.
I had it last year. It was pretty good.
Man, sweet corn looks good.
It tasted different. And
look at Indianapolis' own over here. We said corn. He put a big smile. Big smile.
A twinkle in his eye from Indy.
Steve, do you eat across or around? How do you consume an ear of corn? You across or do you go around? I'm kind of a typewriter guy myself.
I'm a typewriter guy. Salt, pepper, oil. Click.
Yeah. Lots of
click. Pepper. Yeah, I don't trust anybody that goes in a circle.
No, lots of butter. All right, so we talked a little RFK. We are going to venture back into those for our weekend winners. But let's talk another team, a Chevrolet team, which one got a win today. Hendrick Motorsports was, as I mentioned before, just all over the place because we had the 48 of Alex Bowman doing absolutely everything he can these last couple of weeks to get into the playoffs. Obviously, the only car there without a win this season. You have the regular season title chase, which is basically coming down between teammates as well. If you take away Denny Hamlin, the 11 that's trying to sneak in there. But I want to touch on first the 5 versus the 9. How does the Monday or Tuesday meeting at Hendrick Motorsports go down between Chase Elliott, Alan Gustafson, Kyle Larson, Cliff Daniels? Steve, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is why Jeff Gordon is the perfect co-chairman of the organization. Because he's seen it nearly get torn apart when Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson were disagreeing. You know, that famous when they ran into each other at Texas and, you know, somebody's upset and there's some chirping on the radio. And in my opinion, actually, this is what makes the organization great, because I don't think that Rick or Jeff Andrews, Jeff Gordon, Chad Knaus will allow this beating and banging, pushing and shoving to be more than great racing. And I think it's okay that they hit each other. It's okay that they're pissed at each other in the near term. It's not okay if it continues past the Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday meeting, because that's how you build an organization of winners. Like, you can't have this many wins without, I mean, look at these restarts. I mean, yeah, you hit each other, but I mean, it's a bar fight. I mean, you can't, if you start racing people like they're your teammates, you're not going to go forward. And I think that's a magical mix. And I will add that if the race teams start racing each other differently, the race fans should lose their mind, because, we don't want to see organizations race. We want to see drivers race. Now, look, you can't wreck each other, but they didn't wreck each other. They definitely had some beating and banging, but I don't think it continues forward. Look, it's part of it. It's part of it.
2 incidences on track between the 5 and the 9. Adam, this is not the first time that we've seen Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson have some disagreements on the racetrack. What do you think?
And I would say it won't be the last. I think you have 2 of the great drivers in the sport, 2 champions that spend a lot of time racing around each other because, they're both very competitive and at the front on a regular basis. And I would say it makes for a great headline. And when you do what we do, you absolutely can't ignore these 2 racing together. But I think Steve makes a great point. They've got the right people in place at Hendrick Motorsports to make sure they find the right competitive balance of their drivers, but to make sure that it doesn't interrupt the chemistry of what their overall goal is. And, they've got 4 drivers right now in position to get into the playoffs and go run for a championship. And there's obviously a little bit of work left to do if you're Alex Bowman, but I think you could make a case for all 4 of these guys to get hot in the fall and go out and win the title and make a deep run. We saw how effective they were a season ago, and I would anticipate they'll do it again. And I would say that when you reflect back on today, it'll end up just being a blip on the radar.
If it's not, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not trying to be silly, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen, but you got to put cold water on coals before it turns into a fire. I don't think that's necessary, but I think that's that's what upper management over there knows. If you ignore it, then it could turn into something. They are not an ignore it type company, right? They are a sit down. Do you have a problem? Do you have a problem? So we don't have a problem. Okay, move forward, right? And I'm not saying it's a big deal, but I do think it'll be, I don't know if it'll be publicly or quietly addressed, but they're going to make sure it's not a problem. And I actually think Larson and Chase, I don't know, like they're racers. Like, I don't see them getting upset with one another because it felt like racing. It wasn't like a swipe at one another.
Yeah, that was just what I was about to say. I think you focus on it as much as the drivers focus on it. And I think those 2 champion drivers, or, it was racing and we were hard racing, and I'm going to race you. I'm not going to wreck you and tear up your equipment, but I'm going to race you as hard as I'm going to race anybody else. So I think it's mentioned on Tuesday in their team meeting, but I think it's a mention, and we move right along to Watkins Glen. Let's also look at the 48. So, Adam, does the 48 make it into the playoffs? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think they do. They got a 63-point advantage, and I know it's really, really delicate right now, and a lot can go wrong on a road course, just like that if you're on the wrong side of strategy, but they're a really good road racing team. And I feel like they'll be productive next weekend at Watkins Glen to help themselves. The one that really makes you nervous is Daytona, obviously, but as long as we don't add new winners to the mix in the next couple of weeks, I think they go to Daytona with a nice cushion. They're able to play defense and work their way into the playoffs. I'm concerned about RFK at the cut line in that final position. I think is really up for grabs, because I think there's a real shot we do get one new winner. But I feel like if I'm a betting man, I'd put a lot of money on the 48 running for a championship when we go to Darlington.
I think the only question is, do they win before now in the playoffs? I think they absolutely move forward. Is it on points or is it with a win? This plays a lot like Richmond. They were very good today. They have these sneaky wins. I don't know how else to say it. Like, we talk about this all the time, but what is Alex Bowman's, signature? He's kind of like that, the butler in Mr. Jeeves, right? Like, he's very, very sneaky. It's like all of a sudden he's like in victory lane, and then you're like, whoa, what happened? And shame on us for overlooking. When you look at his numbers, we shouldn't overlook them, but or I shouldn't say we do, but perhaps I do. The guy's won 8 career wins, right? I got my little cheat sheet here. This isn't off the memory.
But hey, Steve, he's won 8 races at 8 different tracks. That's what's crazy to me, you know?
So yeah, right. So to your point, Adam, like it's like he and I think we take for granted the guy broke his back and was concussed and had to sit out of a car. And you know, there's a lot of careers in a lot of sports that you look back on, you go, you know, he was never the same after blank. I was worried. There was a time that he wasn't even very close. But now he's in the mid. Like you look up inside the top 10, he's running there. The speed's there. What they have to stop doing is what Alex said in his post-race interview. You can't get too tight qualifying and start outside the top 20. If you do that long enough, it will bite you. And I think that's the next step for this team is avoiding the stubbing your toes type thing. I don't think they have the firepower to stub their toe and win. They have to put together a very clean weekend versus, say, the 5, the 20, the 24. There's some other that has, like, firepower that they don't have to be perfect. I think Bowman has to be a little closer to perfect, but I think they could pull it off.
And I do think with the 48, if folks remember from last season, we were only a few weeks post his Chicago street race win where he locked into the playoffs with that one as well. So there is
and we forget how he got knocked out of the playoffs. Like thinking about advancing, we talk a lot about Legato making it because he got thrown out. I don't think we hang our hats on the left. So I talk about the emotion of racing. Can you imagine leaving Chicago as a driver? Now I know the crew and everybody didn't, but Bowman got in his car and went home and he was advancing. And then you have to get a call that you've been thrown out because of a weight infraction. Like that is deflating for someone. It had to be deflating for Alex.
Yeah, no, definitely a up and down roller coaster of a season. But I do know that all effort at Hendrick Motorsports, one of their goals every single season, and Steve, you know it like nobody's business, is all 4 cars in the playoffs. That is the expectation. That is not the we're gonna try and do this year. Rick Hendrick. I
would go even further to say it's all 4 cars in victory lane. I think the playoffs is like the underlying expectation, but I think they do it with the expectation of winning.
Yes. And Mr. Hendrick is very big on goals. He's very big on accomplishing those. So I know all effort there at HMS is going to be put into the 48 for the next 3 races as well. Obviously, they're going to take care of the rest of the teams, but making sure that 48 is also in that playoff field. All right. I also want to, while we're talking on Hendrick Motorsports, because 3 of them are at the top of this regular season battle, which I feel like is being overlooked a little bit. I want to talk about it a little bit more because at this point in the season, we would kind of have somebody that was figured out as like, oh, okay, it may be this one versus this one. Or it's going to be this guy taking those extra 15 playoff points and winning the regular season trophy. We're 3 races away from the regular season being in the rearview mirror. And we have William Byron obviously just took the lead over Chase Elliott, but it's William Byron, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and they're all pretty much within 50 to 51 points of each other. So regular season is putting on quite the drama. I know we always talk about playoff, but Adam, I want to give some credit to the regular season trophy here and the drama that's unfolding in the top 4.
Well, and you think just do the math, right? There's 4 drivers right there. You get 15 points for winning it, as you said. If you're the 4th guy in line, that means you're getting 7 points, right? And so that's an 8-point playoff point swing for the guy that wins it versus the guy that finishes 4th. And so there's tremendous motivation there and what that can do to further enhance your insurance policy once you get to the fall. And the guy that blows me away on this deal, he's 51 out now, Denny Hamlin. He was 20 points out going to today's race, and they finished 24th, and we know it was a little bit of a struggle for them this weekend. But the fact that he was 20 points out with 4 races to go and he missed a race, I mean, it really puts into perspective how remarkable that team has been this year. And it's going to be fun, especially when you think about how strategy can play such a big role the next few weeks in the way you gather those points. It's going to be very compelling for sure.
Don't talk to me. I'm Mr. Grumpy about the regular season, so I'm the wrong guy to talk to.
Why?
I don't like it.
Why?
I'm not a big fan of the regular season points.
Listen buzzkill, Bill.
I like that the champion gets 5, and I do think that's a point of discussion, right? So whoever wins it, getting 15, I say 5, 15, second gets 10, right, Adam? So it's a 5 point. Yep. It's like winning another race. But this 1 point from the next positions, I'm like, man, that's 1 position at the first playoff race. So I don't listen. Nobody wants me to come on here and just, go toe the line. I'm just going to tell you, I'm not a big regular season points guy.
D'Lo, throw that graphic back up if you can, because I want folks to look at this. So he's talking about 15 playoff points. If you look right there at the playoff points column on your far right, William Byron has 17 playoff points. Chase Elliott only has 6. Kyle Larson, 23. Denny Hamlin, 24. So 15 playoff points to Chase Elliott and Alan Gustafson is a
So, okay. So here's
arm.
the thing. If I was king of the world for a day, you would get 15, second would get 10, third would get 5, and fourth would go home with nothing. Like, I think that's the problem I have. Like, let's not spread this out in participation. Everybody in the top 10 gets a little something. Like, I totally agree that the regular season champion should be celebrated for having an amazing 26 weeks. But let's give this guy something to sink his teeth into. Let's get him a big bonus, which is 15. But when you start giving all of his competitors 10 and 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, the gap for winning the championship is not big enough for me. It's like winning one more race. Let's award the guy if he had the best 26 weeks. See, I told you not to get me started. This is your fault, Weaver.
This is how I know the Letarte children went to competitive colleges and were top of their class and very smart kids, because participation trophies in the Letarte household clearly not happening.
No, they don't even come in the front door. Don't even dare hang it on your wall.
Well, it's pretty obvious, too, that we've showed our hand that we don't have production meetings on this show, because if we had production meetings, the playoff points and the regular season championship never would have made the cut. So,
but that's the beauty of the show. The beauty of the show is tune in, because we're going to tell you like it really is. I don't have a problem with celebrating the champion. I think he should be recognized after 26 weeks. But much like in other sports, you get a little advantage, home field advantage maybe, or this advantage or that advantage. But then we go along. Then we start the playoffs, So I guess my point is, I feel like winning it isn't a big enough advantage because it's only 5 over second. I'm okay with 5 over second, but 6 over third, 7 over fourth. Like if you're going to award somebody something, let's give them a dang award. It's 26 weeks worth of work.
It's a major award.
Now on the other side, if Denny Hamlin outruns you, woof, that stings a little. I know it shouldn't sting. It was Larson a year ago that wasn't at the Coke 600, but man, and I'm not picking on these teams. I raced in the Jimmy Johnson era. I know what it's like to get your nose bloodied week in and week out. So I know I'm very comfortable with losing, right? When you race against Jimmy Johnson, you have to get comfortable with it. But to your point, Adam, with Denny not even being at a race and now being this close, it was really close. He didn't have the best day today, although he kind of knew it in his pre-race interview. He did not seem warm and fuzzy. I thought he was being humble. I thought it was going to be okay. I am wrong. He was being accurate. He did not have the magic feeling in the 11 car.
Hey, can I ask one thing, Alex? Did you just quote A Christmas Story? It's a major award, right?
Thank you, Double A. Thank you.
Hey,
so
Double A.
We've been on the air 30 minutes or whatever, and Steve referenced The Butler and Mr. Deeds, and Alex referenced the major award comment from the father.
Just in case Dale's winning, you want to go ahead and just give us the line, Adam?
What's that?
Just in case Dale's watching, you want to just give us the line?
They're angry because they have lost that one. I mean,
that's it. So good. So good. So good.
For Geely. I think it's Italian.
For Geely. Right. Oh, yeah. It's a major award.
Now let's get into our next segment here, the best race that you missed. So basically, I want to break this down for the viewers here. This is who ran well but didn't get noticed enough in our book. We're not saying that they didn't get noticed at all. We're just thinking they should have been noticed.
Don't be taking those shots at the booth. We talked about everybody.
So we're going to recognize them on my list. And I'm hoping the two gentlemen here will agree. Bubba Wallace in 6 rebounded from 2 laps down to get his 3rd straight top 10 finish after changing a toe link. He got 2 free passes today. Coming off of a Brickyard 400 win. Adam, Bubba Wallace.
Hold on, Adam. How bad is this? And you've done this. We call the whole race. I look at the monitor and I'm like, Bubba finished 6th? I was on the race call. And I'm like, holy smokes. Like, I totally lost him in that last run.
Hey, I'm going to tell you what. I took notes during the race today in anticipation of being on with you guys. I get into my office. I'm writing down the top 10 because I don't have enough devices to keep track of everything that went on. And I write 12, 60, and I get to 6th place, and I'm like, 23? I'm like, is Bubba still driving the 23? I'm like, how did that happen? Like, I will say, though, there's a few drivers inside the top 10 I won't say that at some point in the race you would have wrote them off, but you definitely wouldn't have bet they would have finished where they finished.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, Alex, your point is absolutely right. Bubba Wallace's team in the recovery, it'll show up on the scoreboard, and it might not have the value that everybody wants it to be. But if I was on this 23 team, if I was Charles and Ike, if I was going to circle the group up, I would say, guys, look at right here. The last two yellow dots. So every dot's a pit stop. Left to right is your positions. He has the issue, which is why he drops down. And then the last two yellows are free pass, and then he climbs all the way back up. I would just bring this to the meeting and say, this is the team that has to be around in the playoffs. Because do I think the 23 is going to outrun the 5 every week or the 20 every week? They can. Do I think every week? I think that would be a farce, right? Like they're not the favorite if you were looking at the betting odds. But this sort of tenacity will get you to advance. And if the others trip up, if the favorites, stub their toe, you could take advantage of it. This was a big day for the 23 coming off because it would have been really easy, especially off the wind, to emotionally throw it in. But they didn't, right? Like they took momentum of a win and made it into one of the best recoveries of the year. So I agree. That was the team that we for sure didn't talk about it because I didn't know he finished sixth.
Show that graph again, D'Lo, for us, because as Steve was pointing out, the far right, that's a good day in the stock market for Bubba Wallace. I'm going to make this as difficult as
I like that. No, I like it.
I mean, look, it's a perfectly buy the dip
Buy the dip. That's right. You got it right. Buy the dip.
There we go.
Stock market tips from Alex Weaver.
If you look at everything of Bubba Wallace's day Steve, are we in the final stage here and his 2 free passes?
Yeah, the final. Yeah. Yes. The last 2 yellows of the day are his first and second lap back. So you want to talk about coming your way?
Is thinking that Bubba Wallace is going to finish in the top 10 at that point in the race? It's just insanity to me, and I feel like.
Can you imagine if somebody live bet that? I bet the live odds when he was a couple laps down to finish in the top 10.
Yeah, no.
I would say this though. Steve, you brought this up earlier, and we were talking about. The perfect time to make the last pit stop and what a moving target that was because there was no way to anticipate all the cautions and how far you could make it and so on, and how long Chase Elliott waited and how long, Josh Berry and those teams waited. And then ultimately you make your pit stop so late that you're buried and you have no track position. And we know what a challenge that was. But you put Bubba Wallace now in a different category. It wasn't that they waited and pitted. They just weren't on the lead lap. And then they finally get the free pass. And they overcome that, which really, when you think about it in the perspective of guys that were up there, make a pit stop to lose their track position and don't get the finish, and you see what they did, that really puts an exclamation point on how strong they were on that final run of the day.
So let me get on my strategy soapbox for a minute. So that's what frustrates me when people say, hey, what's the right strategy? I'm like, well, how good's your car and where you're running? So I think the fan, and it's not just the fan, I think a lot of people believe this, that, this is how the race needs to be run. So when we talk in the pre-race, right, Adam, we talk about in the booth, when Lee Diffie, tees me up and says, how would you run this race? I'm talking about if I had a good car, how do I think the race will be won? And I think it's minimal times on pit road and do all this stuff. But I don't think we talk enough about the strategy to run 5th with a 10th place car or 10th with a 20th place car, or even worse, 25th with a 5th place car, because you can do that as well, right? So to your point, Adam, the race win was going to be between Byron, Briscoe, and Kes stretching fuel. And then Blaney proved that newer tires mattered because he drove up to their bumper. Bubba had the best tires. And, so I only say that because I know strategy can be confusing, but I'm a big golf fan. And when I watched when I watched the Wyndham and the FedEx Cup was jumping all around, I didn't ask how the soup was made. All I know is he went from red 76 to green 75. It meant he was in the finale, and I was excited, right? So it's a little bit of that way. Just follow your driver along and see when the last time he pitted was, because it can be super complicated. And I will tell you that the great thing about TV is I don't have to be right because it's way easier to correct it when it happens. When you're down there on the pit box, it is in hyperspeed trying to make these decisions. Really, really hard to do.
Definitely not jealous of the men and women that are down there on top of the pit box.
I'm a little jealous. I missed those 4 hours.
It would not take much, I don't think, to get you back down there. But I know you like to see.
I stood on one pit box and Dale Jr. took all the credit. I mean, don't even get me started.
There we go.
No, I'm just picking.
Well, we have some more weekend winners. I first want to dive into our second place finisher because we're talking a lot about the 24, but it was a gentleman by the name of Chase Briscoe who has just stolen all of the Busch Light poles this season. I don't know what the 19 has been doing this year, but it's working. So he finished top 2 in 3 of the last 7 races of 2025, including 3 of the last 4. I think we're on pole 6, 5, 6. I don't know the exact number. I should have looked that up better.
6.
Okay. So, I mean, he just is finding a lot of speed. So, Adam, with this Chase Briscoe story, we were all wondering what he was going to do in this 19. I feel like he's exceeded expectations.
Yeah, and you talk about the poles, and he's won 6 poles this year, and he's done it for all the big races. But he's also got 6 front row starts in the last 11. So if you just start with a Coke 600 through today, and you kind of handicap their numbers, and not everything's gone their way, but in that span, he's had those top 5 finishes, those runner-ups that you referenced. He had the win at Pocono, the 6 front row starts. I remember Steve saying this years ago. The Coke 600 a lot of times is when we really started to figure out who had what. And I look at Chase Briscoe with this new team and a brand new situation and a different mindset and different folks around him. And it takes a little bit of time, I'm sure, to get your legs under you and to figure all that out. And we've seen that transformation over the summer. And I feel like we're seeing his confidence grow as a driver, and his expectations of himself are growing. And the expectations of the team and the confidence they have in him is also taking a step, and it's happening at the right time. And you talk about the schedule, and there's been some really interesting matchups of where the 19's been good and Chase hasn't been as good versus maybe where Chase has a great history and they can take advantage of his talent. And some of those tracks are coming up. Road courses, high expectation. Richmond, think about how good Martin Truex Jr. was at Richmond when he went over and started driving the 19 car. Heck, Chase won the Southern 500, last year, and we know he's really good at Darlington. So when you look at what they've accomplished and then you look at the tracks ahead, this team, with the support of Joe Gibbs Racing, has got a real opportunity to not only take some momentum into the playoffs, but once we get there, take some big steps and put themselves in position to advance and make some noise.
He's got the swagger to drive for a team that should win. It's as simple as that for me. He came from SHR where if you won, it was a big moment. He even won that race, and he was like, man, I just don't even feel as, what do you say after Pocono? This didn't feel as good as it should have, because when you win at SHR, you kind of weren't expected to win, and he didn't know how to win and what was it going to feel like. And then he won, and he goes, but I feel like I should win. And yes, you should win. Welcome to the big leagues, bud. If you drive for one of these big teams, nobody's going to, remember when, was it Truex won at Pocono, like the first time in '78, and everybody congratulated him. We just saw last week with Bubba Wallace, everybody congratulated him. I'm going to tell you right now, Bubba Wallace wins next week. Nobody's going to congratulate him. Nobody's coming to victory lane. Nobody cares. And I say that tongue in cheek, but it is different. If you drive for Penske, Gibbs, Hendrick, I argue 2311 is moving into that category, right? These teams that win a lot of races, you should, I don't want to discount the wins and not say that you should celebrate them, but you don't get the same reaction. Public reaction isn't the same. And I think Briscoe had to win and get the public reaction. And now I hate to use the word swagger because he's like the most humble guy you ever see. But when he puts the helmet on, he has Joe Gibbs Racing swagger. That's the difference, right? I mean, in the car, he's driving. You know what I mean, Adam? When you watch guys that they think about a move and then make it, he's not doing that. Door opens, car's there, right? Like, he is driving to the limit. He is reacting. I think he has the confidence that he could wreck the 19 and it's okay. You have to get to this point where you can't call races scared of making mistakes. You can't drive afraid to wreck one. You have to push it to the edge. And that's what I see out of the 19. I think James Small had to shake it off. He had some calls go wrong, right? Like, this has been a little bit of a snowball, but this organization now, they reminded me of the Cole Pern, Martin Truex Jr. Like, I'm not saying they're there. That would be a major stretch and a huge overstatement. But I feel they have the building blocks. They have that same, poor James Small had to follow Cole Pern with Martin Truex Jr. That would be like crew chief and after Chad Knaus, right? That's going to be a really hard task. But now James has his team. This is his 19 team. And now Briscoe has his car. And I just feel like this pairing has a lot of potential. A lot of potential. Now, look, if me and the two of them went to dinner, they would both say 5 words and I do all the talking. They're some pretty quiet guys, but they do most of their talking on the racetrack.
Yeah, I've talked to Briscoe a couple of times because I was just interested. If you guys don't know James Small and his personality, he is this fiery Australian that every other word is a curse word. He is just all racing all the time. And then Chase, who is such a racer, but is this going fishing on Saturday nights in the local watering hole down by the racetrack.
He was fishing outside the tunnel here at Iowa.
Exactly. This is my point. He just is slow and, he's an Indiana boy that just likes old school things and Tony Stewart fan and just grew up around the sport. I have asked Chase, how has this relationship been going? And he's like, honestly, it's like boyfriend and girlfriend, opposites attract. We have complimented each other in different ways that I didn't expect it either. So for Chase and James, I've enjoyed watching develop, and I've liked where Chase has been at. But yeah, he had 3 kids in the motorhome under the age of 4 last night and managed to go out, win the pole, and finish second in this race.
Well, never mind. Chase Briscoe, second place, most impressive run of the day. I didn't realize those stats survived.
Yeah. Let's continue here with our weekend winners. Double A, we talked a little bit about RFK already and obviously what Brad Keselowski was able to do. But this was the first time since 2012 that Roush has had 2 cars in the top 5 in consecutive races. So I'm looking at Ryan Preece, obviously Brad Keselowski, but give some love to Ryan Preece for us. He finished in the 5th position.
It's funny. We were doing our summer run and Ryan was doing some positive things. And when I say our summer run, the time that Steve and I spent in the booth with Dale, and in one of our meetings, Dale said, you can't look at Ryan's history. Those numbers just don't matter because that was with a different team. And he's with RFK now. And this is a totally different mindset and expectation. And I think we're seeing that. And, I spent some time with Derek Findlay way back before we, probably in the month of May. And hearing him talk about Ryan Preece and the respect he had for him and the things that Ryan did to ensure team chemistry and to make sure everybody was on the same page, it was almost like you could see developing what's transpired over the summer. And great today, could have easily been a lap down and gotten himself out of the game early, and they fight and stay in it. And then the other thing I would say that excites me about Ryan Preece is just the fact that we're going to Watkins Glen next week. And they have done such a really good job with that 60 group of managing these road races to maximize points and understanding, do we need to flip the stage for track position or are we going to run it long and get points? And it's going to be really fun to watch that battle next week because the guy they're chasing in points is their teammate and the very guy that won this race last year. He said after the race, Ryan Preece said after the race on USA, I think we can get all 3 cars in the playoffs. I am unwilling to commit to that right now, but if everything played out, they might be able to get a couple in with Buescher above the cut and Preece and, with Daytona. But I'm impressed. I'm happy for him, and I think they've done a really good job with the first-year group of making something out of it.
Yeah, there's glass half full, and then there's glass overflowing with water. I'm not ready to put all 3 in.
Dream big, kid. Dream big.
Yeah, but I will tell you, I'm glad Derek Findlay's getting a little bit of attention. He's one for the old guys, right? He was around in the garage when I was. He's kind of seen it all, done it all, and he had some tough decisions. Preece was on the radio talking about a potential loose wheel. We showed on TV. They brought the iPad up. He looked at all the information. They were able to stick out, stay on the racetrack with it. I think I said this in the USA post race. What Preece did today was make points of conversation again. At 42, it was an absolute must win. Now at only 23, I, much like you, Adam, believe there's going to be another winner, but you got to race like there isn't or race like there is. I guess that's a really good question. Like, what do you do? I think can I answer my own question or is that rude?
No,
Can I ask the question and then answer it?
It's your show, Steve.
I think if you're Ryan Preece, you try to win the race without it costing you points. And what I mean by that is you don't, like next week, if I can score 5 or more stage points, I'm gonna take them. And I would do that in either stage because I just don't know what could happen at the end. If somehow Ryan Preece unloads at Watkins Glen, and I say this because Connor Zilic is in the race, SVG's in the race, Chris Buescher's going to be super fast. Like, I just don't have Ryan Preece being a top 4 or 5 car on speed. Now, he's going to be good, though, so I think he could score stage points. Qualified front row at Mexico City, right? So if he goes to Watkins Glen and qualifies well enough that you could score 5 points in each stage, that's 10 positions in the finishing order of the race. I think you take the points. You can't, the glass can only be half full, is my point. You can't think you're going to outrun some of those guys.
Well, today at Iowa, you never know what can happen on Sundays, and especially as we close in on the regular season finale. Ryan Preece entered Iowa today, 42 points from the cut line. He left 23 points behind.
And had a speeding penalty on the first yellow.
Penalty. So the fact that he was able to have one of the best days in Iowa, he didn't win Iowa, but have one of the best points days at Iowa and kind of catapult this team into an opportunity to where they may have 1, 2, Chris Buescher dreaming big, 3 cars into the playoffs, but kind of an upswing right now for RFK.
Yeah, I'm impressed. 6 most points of anybody, scored 34 points. If he could score 30 points at Watkins Glen, I don't really care how he finishes. I think a 30-point day at a Watkins Glen is going to be impressive. And then if the poor guy, and I say this as humbly and as nicely as I could say it, if he can just stay on his tires at Daytona, because if there's somebody that flies at the speedways, it just seems to be Preece. He has 0 luck. So surely, not that the racing gods care, but surely the racing gods are like, you know what? We owe this guy a decent run at the speedway. Like, he's taking a couple major rides with a smile on his face.
Everybody stay on their tires at Daytona. Let's just all stay on the ground.
All right.
Will be lovely for me. But that brings me now to, because we talked about the points and where they are on the cut line. This is our playoff pressure cooker. We are getting closer and closer to the playoffs. You can feel the intensity being ramped up. We've talked about nothing but the bubble for weeks, which is Kyle Petty on our show here on Inside the Race. It's his favorite topic. I say that with sarcasm. He says that these are like the ghost guys that once the playoffs start, you never talk about them again. But we're going to keep talking about these guys here on Inside the Race on the bubble. So Adam, for you, let's look at where the points are right now. And my first question for you is, below this cut line that you're looking at right now, so starting with Ryan Preece, is there a guy that stands out to you of, yep, this guy is going to be above the cut line when Daytona is all wrapped and finished?
Well, I mean, Ryan Preece is the only one that has a chance to point in, obviously. And if you look at statistically speaking, that's not going to happen. I know we just had the conversation about him and made the case and all of that. But if you look at history, it's going to be a challenge in 3 races to overcome the 23-point deficit. And that's if we don't get another winner. But I think when you look behind him, there just go down the list. And it's like, who do you want to make a case for? Because I can make a case for all of them when you look at the tracks that are coming up. And I would bet 1, I might set the over-under at 1.5 new winners between now and when we get to Darlington to begin the playoffs. But when you see how today's race played out and the challenges that place creates, and then you think about the wild card scenarios that can come at the tracks that we're going to, and in particular Daytona, I just think it's anybody's guess which one of these drivers could go out and get it done. But I'll just let the list on the screen speak for itself, because I'm a believer that there's a matchup for all these drivers where they can go out and win.
Hey, last 3 winners at these tracks: Chris Buescher, Austin Dillon, Harrison Burton. I mean, none of those guys are in the playoffs. Harrison's not even in the field, right? So, I say that because there are 10 drivers that have won races that are currently below the cut line. Those 10 drivers won 120 races in their career. Look, they're not having the years they would have. If we thought they could win a race or should win a race, they would have already won a race. I mean, let's not sugarcoat this. But it would not shock me. Ty Gibbs is not even on the list because he has yet to win in his career. I think he's going to be great at Watkins Glen. Kyle Busch, who's probably won the most of anybody down here, he's probably not running the best of all these guys. AJ is going to be great at the road course. Brad's going to be great at Daytona. I don't think he's probably a consideration for the win at Watkins Glen from what I've seen lately. Legacy would be a stretch for me for the 42. It wouldn't be a stretch if we were going to Darlington, because the 43 seems to only know how to win there. Eric Jones is unbelievable at Darlington. Legacy's getting better. Mr. Excitement, or as Lee Diffie says, the Hurricane Hocevar in the 77 is, there's a million things. I will say Austin Dillon in the 3 down in 28th. The storyline is building itself. They were good here. They won at Richmond. And what got overshadowed because he wrecked the entire field through 3 and 4 and it didn't count for a win, and all of that stuff doesn't matter. What got overshadowed is he dominated the race and absolutely fumbled the restart is the only reason he had to wreck everybody. Like if he would have just executed the restart, which is not easy to do, but if he would have kept control, he was going to win that race anyway. I think we lose that. We think of Richmond, we think of him wrecking people. We forget that he dominated. Until that late yellow come out, there was no chance he was losing the race. So why not Dillon? Right? And to be clear, when I went to Richmond and everybody said Austin Dillon's going to be good, I was like, yeah, I mean, come on. No, he's not going to be great here. And I was totally wrong. The guy was unbelievable. So I'm with you, Adam. Like I can make an argument for all this. Like, look, would it be a stretch? Haley's won at Daytona. That was in the Lightning. Todd Gilliland runs good at the speedways. That would be big news.
I would say though, Eric Jones, he was really good when we were in the draft at Atlanta, and he's won at Daytona.
Yeah,
so I think that's a very fair point to make there. And Stenhouse, we just know how good that guy is in the draft anywhere. So I hate to keep pointing toward Daytona. Last year.
No, but we have to though, Adam. No, the fans are going to call us out if we're going to give one of these guys Richmond or Watkins Glen. They could win, but don't we think Daytona's the real risk?
Yeah. But I would say that we're bringing up guys not just as Hail Marys, but guys that if you look at their average and you look at their history, deliver on a consistent enough basis that us saying that this guy could win here and make it into the playoffs is not just some far-fetched, dreamed-up scenario. These are dudes that every time you go there, they are a part of the equation, and there is a reason they have wins on their resume in the draft. And it's just Daytona – creates the unpredictability, but these drivers have put themselves in position enough that they'll have a chance.
Well, let's play a game. Scroll up a little bit. Let's get to the first car out. Wins, and I only mean Daytona. Priest, no. Kyle has, right?
Yep.
Daytona? Yes.
Summertime.
Brad K, has he ever won Daytona?
Yep. He's won a summer race there. Yep.
McDowell.
Yes.
McDowell's Daytona 500.
Stenhouse?
Eric Jones.
Eric Jones has
Jones, Stenhouse, Dillon, Haley.
Dillon.
Like we're not making this up, folks. Like they have won at the physical track we're talking about.
And Dillon won there in this scenario in a must-win walk-off to make it into the playoffs. He's actually lived this.
And I think the reason that we focus on Daytona so much is obviously Daytona is a wild card in itself, but there is nothing. We saw it last year. We've seen it with Austin Dillon. We've seen it with numerous guys. There is nothing like the pressure on these NASCAR drivers to know that this is your Hail Mary, your one shot. You have no obligation to this race other than to go out and win it. It creates a completely different strategy, completely different mindset for any of these teams that go out to Daytona. Now, while yes, statistics will show that you are probably going to get caught up in something in Daytona and you may not win Daytona, but there is a chance that you are winning Daytona and you are locking yourself into the playoffs with that walk-off win. So
I peel the Band-Aid off though, Alex. What I do is all these drivers that show up uncomfortable, I'm like, well, you had 25 weeks to be comfortable. And
I hear you.
I know that sounds rude, but like bottle that feeling. And when you unload next year in February, go, man, please don't have it come down to this last race at Daytona because it is an absolute vice grip.
I've been monitoring the chat here with the viewers hanging out with us here on Inside the Race. Jason said he wants 3 new winners this season, the next 3 races. And you know what, Jason? Me too. I want all of the chaos in the world. I would love nothing more than for us to just have all the winners and see how the dominoes fall. So, Adam, I appreciate you joining us here. I hope your Sunday was a little more enjoyable without.
I knew I was going to get you working on a Sunday, Adam. I knew I was going to get a little Sunday time at a double A.
Until later in the afternoon, but we appreciate you coming and joining us.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Steve. Well, we have wrapped up the show here today. Great Iowa.
What a day. Fun day. Fun to be back on my NBC family.
Yep.
I enjoy my time at Turner. I enjoy my time at Amazon, but this is year 11 for me with my folks at NBC. So a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar voices in my ear. It was great to stand next to my old buddy Burton again, year 11 of him and I together. It was great to have Lee there. He does such a nice job. It was a comfortable day and a lot to cover.
I am saying this because I love them both, Lee Diffie and Jeff Burton. Jeff Burton, one of my favorite humans on the planet, but the juxtaposition of their 2 accents.
Well, that's what somebody said one time. They were like, who's the guy with the accent? I said, Jeff Burton, he's from South Boston.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
So good. It is so good.
No, it's
When
great.
they say the same word at the same time too. It just, I mean, you can hear the different worlds collide for sure. Well, here's something dangerous for you guys to look forward to next week. Steve Letarte and I are both in Watkins Glen. We're going to be doing the show together, hopefully from the booth out there at the old road course. Watkins Glen, one of my favorite places ever. So I'm excited to get to upstate New York. But Stevie, final thoughts. What'd you think of today? Give me your grade.
Listen, it's only our second time to Iowa. Forget on track for a moment. I'm going to give an A+, 2 gold stars to the Iowa fan base. I was here Friday walking around, and that's when I knew it felt different. It was an ARCA race, and there was fans walking all around. They were excited to be here. They showed up again on Saturday. Look, sports are great. We get to cover them, but we learned through COVID where we were reminded what we already knew, which is the fans make the event. And that's what happened here in Iowa today. The place was sold out. It was electric. And then the drivers on track absolutely delivered. And I know Watkins Glen will be just as electric next week. So we're in a great, great part of the season.
We love the fans here on Inside the Race. We accept all feedback. Please tweet us what you want to see. We want to make the show better for you guys because we obviously are not going to have the show if it weren't for the NASCAR fans. So thank you so much for being a part of the show. We'll see you next Sunday from Watkins Glen. For Steve Letarte and myself, I'm Alex Weaver. See you next Sunday.